The lights of the Honda Center burned through the rising fog as two very different careers converged on a single electric moment. Adrien the Problem Broner, young, undefeated, brimming with the kind of swagger only a fighter untouched by defeat can wear, walked into the arena like a man stepping onto his own stage. Behind him, the music thumped, the Cincinnati crowd roaring for their rising star, a fighter who believed every step of his journey was predestined. Across from him stood Daniel Ponce De Leon, the hardened warrior from Mexico, a former world champion who carved his name through grit, pressure, and punishment. He wasn't here for hype. He wasn't here for flash. He was here because after 6 defenses at junior featherweight, he knew what it meant to climb into a ring and break a man's will. Their paths collided as the referee pulled them together, giving final instructions above the low rumble of the crowd. Broner looked poised, calm, confident, his frame bigger, his stance composed, his expression unreadable. Ponce de Leon gave only a quiet nod, the nod of a veteran who'd weathered storms far more violent than pre-fight tension. As the bell hung in the air, tension swelled like a string pulled too tight. Everyone knew this wasn't just youth versus experience, speed versus volume, flash versus grit. This was a test. Could the young Phenom handle the seasoned southpaw's relentless pressure? Or would Ponce de Leon remind the boxing world that experience and hunger can humble even the most gifted rising star? When the bell finally cracked through the building, the fight didn't just begin, it erupted into motion. 2 careers colliding, 2 stories unfolding, and the crowd leaning forward with anticipation that something unforgettable was about to take place. From the opening seconds, Ponce de Leon came forward the way only seasoned Mexican warriors do. Tight guard, relentless feet, stabbing left hands to the body like a man chiseling at stone. Broner, taller and naturally bigger, stepped back, rolled his shoulders, and tried to time those lunging entries with a counter right he hadn't yet found the rhythm for. The early rounds felt like a tug of war for control, Ponce pushing Broner to the ropes and hacking at the ribs, ripping left hands downstairs with veteran assertiveness, while Broner tried to stay patient, confident that his superior speed would eventually tame the storm. But early on, it was Ponce dictating the mood, his pressure forcing Broner to back up more than he wanted, forcing him to guard more than he preferred, and forcing him to think rather than flow. Every time Broner planted his feet, Ponce dug another body shot that made the crowd murmur. The commentators noticed it too, those heavy lefts to the midsection, those moments where Broner covered up just a second too long. But even as Ponce racked up early success, the Cincinnati kid remained composed. He flicked the jab, tested the timing, and searched for the openings he believed would eventually come. It wasn't pretty, not yet. It wasn't flashy. It was a young fighter learning on the job in real time. When Broner did fire a crisp counter right, the sound cracked through the building, sharp and sudden, reminding everyone that the untapped explosiveness was there. But Ponce ate it, came forward again, and kept hammering away. It was experience versus raw talent in its purest form. One man attacking with discipline and volume, the other probing, calculating, waiting to find his moment to shift momentum back into his hands. By the 3rd and 4th rounds, the tug of war sharpened into something more tactical, more psychological. Ponce de Leon continued ripping the body, leaning forward behind those heavy left hands, stepping inside Broner's jab and forcing exchanges at close quarters. He wasn't fast, but he was purposeful. Every shot aimed to wear Broner down, to force the young star to fight at a pace and in a space he didn't yet fully control. Broner, meanwhile, began to settle into his defensive shell, firing counter rights over the top and lead hooks when he could steal a moment. But the doubt began to flicker among the commentary team. He's throwing one punch at a time. He's giving Ponce the momentum, they muttered, as the Mexican warrior pressed forward with the confidence of a man who'd been in deeper waters. In the corner, Broner's team pleaded for more activity, more jabs, more combinations, more authority. "Quit standing in front of him. Move. Punch off your step," they barked, trying to shake him into a rhythm that had yet to appear. Ponce's corner, on the other hand, was calm. "Keep digging to the body, step on his foot, stop him from moving." And Ponce did exactly that, even trying to anchor Broner in place by stepping on the lead foot. A veteran trick to freeze a younger fighter long enough to land that looping left hand. Still, Broner kept his composure. Anytime Ponce overcommitted, the Cincinnati Kid fired a crisp, clean counter, straight, sharp, and accurate. But it wasn't enough to win the rounds clearly. Not yet. It was still Ponce's pace, Ponce's pressure, Ponce's fight. Through 4 rounds, the building sensed this wasn't going to be a walk for the young prodigy. It was going to be a test, perhaps the toughest one he'd ever taken at that stage of his career. Then the fight began to shift. Slowly, like a tide turning, Broner found the rhythm that had eluded him early on. By the 5th round, his feet were lighter, his counterpunching sharper, his confidence more visible. He began stabbing the jab with authority, firing right hands down the middle, stepping out of Ponce's foot traps, and timing the Mexican with beautiful catch-and-shoot counters. Suddenly, Ponce's entries weren't landing as cleanly. Suddenly, the left hand that once burrowed into Broner's body now bounced off his elbow or met a counter right upstairs. The crowd felt it, the subtle change, the momentum quietly slipping towards Cincinnati's rising star. Broner's punch accuracy grew as he opened up with double jabs, lead hooks, and flush straight rights that stopped Ponce momentarily in his tracks. But even as Broner improved, Ponce refused to fade. He threw more punches, nearly doubling Broner's volume in some rounds. And every time Broner landed something sharp, Ponce answered with grit, with stubbornness, with another committed jab-to-body left upstairs combination. Through the middle rounds, every exchange felt like the two were arguing in different languages. Broner speaking speed, Ponce speaking pressure, and the judges were left to interpret which message carried more weight. Commentators debated openly. Is Broner throwing enough? Is Ponce effective enough? Who's dictating? The fight had become a razor-thin chess match, wrapped in violence. Broner showed flashes of brilliance, but Ponce's persistence made every round contested, every swing meaningful. It was experience challenging youth to rise, and youth beginning to answer, one precise punch at a time. As the fight entered the final stretch, rounds 7, 8, 9, the tension in the Honda Center thickened. The crowd was now fully invested, cheering loudly whenever Ponce burst forward with another barrage of southpaw pressure, then gasping when Broner snapped his head back with a beautifully timed right hand. The scorecards, had they been visible, would have read like a split personality. Ponce busier, Broner cleaner, Ponce dictating tempo, Broner landing the sharper, eye-catching work. In round 8, Ponce surged again, ripping combinations to the ribs, leaning forward with that determined southpaw stance that had brought him success earlier in the fight. Broner felt the weight of those moments, felt the urgency creeping in, but instead of folding, he sharpened. He planted his feet and fired 4 consecutive right hands in a row, each one splitting the guard, each one snapping Ponce's head back, each one reasserting that he was still very much in command of his own destiny. But Ponce, proud and unrelenting, refused to buckle. He continued pressing, continued swinging, continued believing the fight was his for the taking. By round 9, both men were digging into their reserves, the younger man digging for clarity, the veteran digging for legacy. An accidental clash of heads briefly halted the action, but when they resumed, the sense of urgency doubled. Broner, knowing the fight was close, tightened his defense and picked his spots with maturity beyond his years. Ponce, sensing the clock ticking, threw with even more urgency, his punches less accurate but more defiant. As the bell ended the ninth, the crowd roared, not because anyone had dominated, but because the fight had become a genuine battle of wills, a clash of generations, and neither man was willing to be moved easily. In the 10th and final round, the entire arena rose to its feet, sensing the magnitude of what these last 3 minutes meant. Ponce de Leon came out exactly as expected, throwing combinations, forcing the pace, ripping at Broner's body, trying to flip the fight on sheer volume and pressure. Broner stayed composed behind the jab, firing short counter-rights with precision, using footwork to avoid prolonged exchanges where Ponce could overwhelm by sheer activity. The story of the fight crystallized here, one man pushing the pace, the other landing the cleaner work. Every second felt like an argument, every punch like an exclamation point. When the final bell rang, neither fighter celebrated. They both knew the truth. This had been close, competitive, and demanding. As the scorecards were gathered, the crowd buzzed with divided loyalties, some chanting for the Mexican veteran who threw nearly twice as many punches, others calling for the young star who landed the sharper, more accurate blows. The announcer stepped to center ring, tension tightening every chest in the building. Ladies and gentlemen, from the Honda Center in Anaheim, California, we go to the scorecards. A pause, a breath. Then the verdict. All 3 judges scored the fight the same way. For the winner, by unanimous decision, the Cincinnati Kid, Adrien "the Problem" Broner. Cheers erupted, mixed with murmurs of debate, as Broner lifted his hands, not in wild celebration, but in relief, in acknowledgement of the toughest test he'd faced. This was not a star cruising past an overmatched opponent. This was a young fighter proving he could survive grit, pressure, body shots, and a champion's heart. As Ponce de Leon nodded respectfully and stepped back, the story of the night became clear. Experience had pushed youth to the edge. Youth had risen just high enough. And in the struggle between hunger and talent, both men left the ring with respect that only battles like this can create.